Hi, I'm Gabby.
And I'm Becky.
And we're the Control Shift C podcast.
Welcome to our 4th episode.
And today we're talking about beauty standards. This is going to be a very awkward episode for me, as I was quite literally bawling my eyes out on FaceTime with Becky when I was talking about this. So, let's just hope that doesn't happen today.
Also, we're both like a little sick, so if you can hear that in our voices, we're sorry. Like, just bear with it. It's this like getting sick season. Like, everyone has been catching something.
That's what I'm saying. The first thing that we wanted to get into was the male gaze versus the female gaze. And I feel like when I was researching this, there's so many layers to it, and I feel like just so we don't get off topic this episode, because we kind of want to focus on like beauty standards when it comes to like women. We won't go too in depth into it, so it's gonna be pretty brief. So I'll start with male gaze, and I feel like male gaze towards women is just a lot of like over sexualization of it. And the term male gaze was coined back in like the 80s, I'm pretty sure, by a female screen director. And she basically coined this term because in not only American films, but just films in general, there's a lot of like shots of the female body being like dismembered, and not dismembered as in like when a murderer like chops up someone's body, like, no, not that kind of like dismemberment, but when they focus specific shots on like women's body parts, like their ass and their tits. kind of stuff, you know. And I feel like a really good example of this is the scene in Transformers where Megan Fox is like fixing a car in front of like this dude. Don't ask me what his name is because I don't know. But she's all like posed sexy and like all sweaty, you know. And you can see like when that shot was filmed, like that whole scene, it was focusing on like a lot of her like sexualized body parts. So I feel like that the male gaze is just known to be very toxic to women, because it dehumanizes them and puts their worth, I guess, their value on only like their physical outside perception, you know. And although this is a term that was coined by like in the film industry, it still applies to real life too. And then we can pan to the female gaze, and a lot of people think that it's just the opposite of the male gaze, so the dismemberment of like male body parts, but it's not necessarily that. The female gaze focuses more on two things. The first is using the presence of a woman on screen to emphasize the stories, emotions of a character with their flaws and all. And I feel like that's the least toxic portrayal of women through that female lens that you see in film. I guess that's a good thing when you look at film, but in real life, I think there's another kind of layer to this definition where it's contrary to what a lot of people believe. The female gaze can be just as toxic as the male gaze, and I feel like that's very controversial, because on TikTok you always see like people talking about like, oh, this person was written by a woman or this person was written by a man, and how the implication of them being written by a man is like bad and being written by a woman is good. But the female gaze is essentially also the performance of femininity, and this can pressure a lot of women to feel the need to tap into that sort of feminine side. So both the male gaze and female gaze can feel very binary to their definition, just like the male gaze pressures women to act very like sexual all the time in order to please that audience. I feel like a good example of this, like on a day-to-day life for women, I guess, is feeling the need to always go out with makeup in order to feel like feminine or to feel very like womanly, I guess. And when we don't go out with makeup, we don't feel like we're performing as high as we should or fitting into that standard.
No,
So,
like, oh, sorry.
you can go.
I think part of getting ready and getting out and being put together, I feel like it has become like a ritual for women to do your makeup before you go out, like as like part of that step. Like it's like normalized for girls now, but for men, I feel like they don't have like a step like that. Like there's a whole like process in which a woman goes through in order to consider themselves put together, whereas men, it's just like it's much more
Just simple.
yeah, it's more simple. Because of that, that's why like whenever they're waiting for their girlfriends or whatever to get ready, and there's always this idea of, oh, girls take so long to get ready, but it's just the fact that it's been so normalized for someone to go out and wear makeup in order to feel like they're like dressed up in order to go out,
Or like they're woman enough.
and if they don't go out with makeup, it's like they aren't really doing their part in like
In society, like not trying.
yeah, and it feels like they're not ready, or it just feels like they're no makeup is like essentially
Just like not feminine enough.
for home, you know, and for like downtime and relaxation.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I feel like even in film, it's portrayed a lot where you see like scenes of like all these girls like coming over to like this one friend's house and they're all like doing their makeup together. And it's not even just in film. Like I feel like I've had many experiences like that where I'll go to my friend's house and we're all like, yeah, we'll get ready at this time, we'll do our makeup and our hair together. And I feel like that's a sign of femininity. And I feel like that's such like a girls thing to do. Like I don't know, I feel like this is like very TikTok terms right now, but Gen Z will understand.
I feel like it can go both ways though, because like yes, you can feel like the need to put on makeup and like feel like really insecure if you're out and you're not wearing makeup, and it can become like a toxic thing where you don't feel secure in yourself and you're in your own body and you're in your own skin. Like you feel like it's necessary to wear makeup, but on the other end of like this argument, it could be like, oh, it's just a fun thing to do as a girl. Like we have these like little rituals to take care of ourselves and feel our best. And for someone who is secure in their own skin, it's just a way to like do a little fun girly little thing, rather than, oh, I need to cover up my face and beat my face so I look good when I go out. And so I just think it also depends on the person and where they are at in
Like mentally.
Yeah, in the process of loving their self.
Yeah, because it can be seen as like a performance for other women in a way, even subconsciously. I feel like that's a thing, but it could also, like you were saying, just be like feminine. But either way, again, like the sign of like self-care, being feminine, is still part of like that female gaze, whether it's for the performance or not. Like it's still viewed as like feminine.
Also, when you were talking about the male gaze, for me, like, yes, over sexualization is a part of it, but the big difference between male gaze and female gaze was I feel like the male gaze is more logical and surface level. Like, you know how there's this thing going on in Korea, like in
like
INFP,
yeah,
like in the MBTI,
Mhm.
and it's like when they can't like relate to a person and their feelings, or they immediately jump to a logical way of thinking or solution for the issue presented, or in reaction of how their friend's story or whatever. And it's like, Tia, like, are you a T? And that's how I kind of view the male gaze as. Like, it's very much more surface level and logical, and the female gaze is more like emotional and like tapped in to, I guess, our feelings, and also the idea of femininity and like just being a more relaxed energy rather than masculinity, where it's like, oh, I need to get pumped up, I need to go to the gym and like have big muscles and whatnot. That like rigidity and like structure, that's also like kind of how I view it.
But yeah, like I said, the male and female gaze is a very complicated topic because there's so many layers to it, and I feel like we'll definitely have another episode talking just about both gazes, because it's so like multifaceted, I feel like. So it would take way too long for us to talk about it in this episode and also get into other things, but I feel like that's like a very broad definition of both female and male gaze. But keeping that in mind, just segueing into our next topic, something that you find a lot in the female gaze is, because there's this performance of femininity, women tend to pit themselves against each other, whether subconsciously or not. Because I feel like some people, like, we do it without malicious intent, but there's also people who do it with that intent. And I feel like this plays into a lot of pretty privileged topics.
Wait, before you get into that, for those who have seen Barbie, I feel like it goes into that message and idea very well if you've seen it. And if you haven't, I highly recommend you go watch it. Gabby, she still
Listen,
hasn't
I've been
even
wanting
watched
to watch it. I just have not been having time, okay? But I get the gist.
You don't get it until you watch it. But anyways, they mentioned at one point when I forgot the character's name, but I believe the actress who played the character was America, and she had said girls want to be like supporting girls and like
being a girl's girl.
Yet underlying all of that, there is a competition. There is a competitive feeling of, oh, like she looks prettier than me, and comparison does go into it. But when you see someone else who's better than you, quote unquote, whether that be physically, personality, smarts, or whatever, or femininity, or maybe everything all at once, subconsciously you get competitive. And of course, like Abby was saying, you don't have malintent, but it's kind of natural for those feelings to arise, especially in the society that we're in now.
You have to be thin, but not too thin. And you can never say you want to be thin. You have to say you want to be healthy, but also you have to be thin. You have to have money, but you can't ask for money. You have to be a career woman, but also always be looking out for other people. You have to answer for men's bad behavior, which is insane, but if you point that out, you're accused of complaining. You're supposed to stay pretty for men, but not so pretty that you tempt them too much or that you threaten other women, because you're supposed to be a part of the sisterhood, but always stand out and always be grateful. You have to never get old. Never be rude, never show off, never be selfish, never fall down, never fail, never show fear, never get out of line. It's too hard, it's too contradictory, and nobody gives you a medal or says thank you. And it turns out, in fact, that not only are you doing everything wrong, but also everything is your fault.
More so than other ones, just because of the rise of social media and all of that.
And so everybody wants to be like, go girls, femininity and whatever.
Like body positivity, all of those movements.
But even though there's this whole show and like positive movement going on, it doesn't help solve the issues. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm happy that we're talking about these things more openly and trying to be better as a collective, but there's a lot of issues that are being masked by this positive movement in social media, I feel like. And it just doesn't solve the problem, and I feel like we need something more solid, or just something more solid in order for us to as a society move forward and be more
kind of treat the underlying issue.
Treat the underlying issue. I know like a big part of this is your just own personal growth and your own experience, but hopefully like one day we can have a better treatment to the cause, I guess you could say.
Most definitely. I feel like we all hope for that.
Not to be spoiling the Barbie movie, like if you don't want to, I still think what I have to say regarding it is important, but if you feel like any of this is spoiling you, you can skip. I'll put in the timestamps and whatnot, but
yeah, actually this time, maybe, because it's been like 2 episodes.
I'll get them done later. But it was talking about how the need for like women to like feel pretty, and even though we're like, oh, you don't have to compare yourself to other girls and like look like them in order to be pretty and have this realization. Barbie, however, was played by
Margot Robbie,
which is stunning. And so I loved how they paused in the movie and there was a voiceover and they were breaking the third wall and they were saying, oh, we realize that this is not a good, or it doesn't validate the message because the person playing the role right now is Margot Robbie and looks stunning and is spreading the message. Mm-hmm. And I felt so seen in that moment because I was thinking that exact thing when Barbie had said that, and I was like, but Barbie's stunning and she's literally being played by Margot Robbie right now. And in that moment, it was not only funny comedically, but it was just extremely relatable. And I'm glad that it's not just a surface level of, girls thing type of movie, but it actually highlighted actual issues in just a fun way.
Yeah, that reminds me of, I think like in 2020, she's canceled now, so don't come for me. But I think she's a good example of this. Sienna May, the TikToker, she was, I guess she got like popular, not only for her like little dances or whatever, but because she was also very like body positive. But again, I feel like something before she got like the sexual assault allegations, before that, I feel like people were having an issue with the way that she preached body positivity, because she would post like before and after videos of like, this is before I ate and this is after I ate. But you know, she's still like a skinny woman, and she just has curves, you know, but she's still in that beauty standard where it's like slim, thick, and fat ass.
Yeah, very hourglass, like,
yeah,
very beauty standard. So
I just felt, and a lot of people felt this way, where it's like, of course, like, people of that standard can still love themselves and preach body positivity, but you also have to keep an open mind to people that don't fit that standard, and how, like, what's the word? Like, it just feels like ingenuine in a way.
Who like is the beauty standard is talking about how like, oh, like preaching body positivity and how you should love your body, when she doesn't face the same issues because she is the beauty standard. It would be a different story if she was like a plus size body, or I don't know, just something, but like it doesn't convey the same message when it feels more performative in that sense.
Yes, yeah, because like you were saying, they just don't face the same consequences that like a woman, like you were saying, who's just not in that standard,
they don't
doing
go
the same
through
thing.
The same
and you
struggles.
You can see that through like comment sections of like a plus size girl like showing off her body and like talking about like, yes, I love myself and blah 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 blah. The comment section to like that woman's video compared to Sienna May's would be completely different. Like, it would just be a bunch of men on this plus size woman's video talking about like, no, like, you're too fat for this, and this is not body positivity, it's actually really toxic, and what you need to do is not love yourself but take yourself to the gym.
What you're promoting is unhealthy diet.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that bothers me so much. And like, men on like Sienna May's video would be like, wow, like, your body is so beautiful, and like, I really want you, you know, stuff like that. And again, how this plays into male gaze is like that internalized like male validation. I feel that like a lot of women especially me still deal with it on a day-to-day basis. And bringing it to like, I guess, a more personal level, I think a really good example of this is like when I go out with like a group of my friends, and listen, I have no ugly friends. I don't. All my friends, they're hot. So when we all like get ready and go out with each other, like, we all really look good. But then there's that thing where it's like, there's only like that one person in our friend group that gets hit on the most, you know? And I feel like, again, going back to that internalized male validation, but also the competitiveness between women, where it's like you feel like you have to constantly be in this competition, and it's so subconscious, because in my mind, like, yeah, like, she's getting all these people, like, all these men are like attracted to her because she's freaking gorgeous, like, she's hot. Like, obviously, girl, if I was a man, I'd be coming at her too. Like, so it's like, it's so hard to like talk about it because there's no malicious intent, but subconsciously, like, there's a person like me where I don't fit that standard. And although, yes, I got out and I'm all like prettied up and stuff, there's still that feeling where it's like, am I not enough? You know?
Yeah, that male validation creates a sense of, oh, if men aren't attracted to me, or if not as many men are attracted to me as my really hot friend, then I am not pretty and I don't fit the standard. And so I guess that's why it's like so common for girls to like be victimized by the male validation.
And I feel like another way that this plays too is like, unfortunately, I was a victim to this, but I always bring it up with my friends how like back in like 2020, that was like my era. Like I felt like that was when I was the most confident like in myself and in my body. And even though I didn't necessarily fit those standards, I still felt confident. And I feel like a lot of girls go through this, and this might be a little bit personal or like TMI, but I feel like even though I was confident in a way, what kind of played into that confidence was the fact that at that time I would show off my body a lot more. And like when I was back on Snapchat, that app has been long deleted. But when I was like, I would post a lot of, I wouldn't say inappropriate pictures, but just like sexualizing myself. And again, that's really sad considering the fact that I was like, 13? And like when I would send snaps to like people that I was talking to, it would be very, I guess that's when I can say it would be inappropriate. Oh my gosh, my dad watches this. This is gonna be so embarrassing. Anyways.
And your guidance counselor.
Yeah, I'm gonna warn him to not watch this episode. And if he does, then that's on you. I warned you, so.
And she doesn't do it anymore, thank God. Yes, she's being a safe woman.
Exactly. But I feel like male validation plays into like, or I feel like male validation is kind of ingrained in our heads from such a young age, where I felt like from the ages of like 11 to like 14, I had to show off my body in order to attract more men. And like I was saying, when it was 2020 and I was confident, again, like that confidence played into the way I was attracting men back then, kind of played into why I was so confident, you know? And I feel like that's so sad that I felt the need to do that at such a young age. And it's so sad to think back now, like after everything I've been through and being like 17 now, I still find that 2020 was still the era that I was like most confident with myself.
And that just goes back into how male validation can fuel a woman's confidence, even though that shouldn't be the case.
It shouldn't.
This story is in no way means to like shame Gabby or
shame other people who've done the same thing, you know?
Because unfortunately, a real issue for girls growing up, especially with social media, at like the access to social media at such a young age. And so it becomes an actual issue where girls feel the need to like be sexualizing themselves in order to feel confident and validated by like men, in order to be able to like walk around with their head up and or get rid of their own insecure feelings. Because I'd watched this interview once. Bro, I watch a lot of stuff in the media, like don't come for me. But I also feel like that has helped expand my views, and so go me. But this porn star, I forgot her name, but she's like one of the biggest porn stars, like, or past porn stars in history, and
Mia Khalifa.
And in her interview, she had explained how she like as she was growing up, she felt so ugly, and this need for like attention in order to make her feel better about herself, and that's how she ended up getting into
the
porn.
industry.
And she eventually realized that what she was doing wasn't healthy for herself, and that's why she had like quit being a porn star and moved to things she was passionate about and could express herself in creatively and like through social media. But because of her past with porn, she has like faced a lot of struggles in dealing with that and getting rid of that like image. Of herself.
The stigma, right?
So it goes to show just how common the issue is, and I hope no one feels shame for what they had gone through or what they are going through, but it's just to spread awareness about the issue and bring more light to it, because I mean, not every single girl is out there on social media like over sexualizing her body
in order for male attention. Some people just want to do it because they feel good. Like, not everything is also to please the male eye either. It just happens to be that for a lot of young girls that are developing, even with Mia Khalifa, like, she probably started when she was, like, still young,
or,
you know?
like, not even just, like, over-sexualized pictures that are, or, like, showing off their body, but just, like, pretty pictures and posting them in general, because a lot of girls hype each other up on Instagram and, like, are in the comments. And
have you seen a girl's comment section?
Yeah, it's usually, like, girls hyping girls, which we love, but it's not always going to be that scenario in that case. Sometimes a girl just feels good and wants to post a cute picture of herself. But it isn't to say that we shouldn't be like, oh, no girls are out there doing it, because there are girls who are growing up at young ages who are doing this to themselves because of the society that we've been in and how they grew up and how it has affected their mindset.
So I feel like now being 17, although I still face like similar issues where I'm still trying to perform for men in a way, I wouldn't say it's the same way that I did when I was younger. But now, because of a situation that happened like a year ago, I would say, I was talking to this person, I guess. So if he sees this, oopsies. But I feel like it's really important to talk about because a lot of girls would be able to relate to this. But me and this person were talking, and we both established that we had mutual feelings for each other, but because of something that he did, we just decided to be friends, and we still continue to talk just as friends or whatever you want to call it for a couple months after that. But with that came like him sending me like a bunch of accounts of like these other girls, and he kind of just becoming infatuated with like a new girl like every other week. And I felt like, although sure we agreed to be just friends, because I still had like lingering feelings, having that like comparison and him sending like me so many like different girls that looked nothing like me, it really messed with me, because it, in a way, like that whole situation, it felt like it was enabling past experiences that I had, where it's like I felt like I never grew up pretty and I never fit that standard. So I kind of tried to make it up with my personality, and I said, if boys can't like me because I'm not pretty, then I'll get them to like me because of my personality. And this was one of those things where at first, like, our personalities, they meshed so well with each other. Like, we were both surprised at like how deep and personal we were able to get with each other. But after we established that we just wanted to be friends, I
feel like you felt like him rejecting you was, even though you guys got along with each other so well personality wise, it was like your physical appearance that made him make that decision of rejecting you, because your personality was good, but since you don't fit his standards physically, then you would be kept as a friend. Whereas if you did have that personality and have like his like ideal appearance, then you would have like ended up becoming like his girlfriend and like going into a relationship with him.
Yeah, exactly. To just add on to what she was saying, I feel like although it wasn't necessarily a rejection because it was mutually established in a way, I think for me what kind of hurt the most is how fast he kind of got over it, and immediately started talking to me about like other women that he was interested in, and again having them look like the complete opposite as me, and them all being like, you're stereotypical ABGs. It was kind of deteriorating in a way to my self-esteem, just because, like Becky was saying, I feel like if I had those looks, then maybe it would have lasted longer, you know. And then like looking at it like from like all the conversations we had, I feel like there's been like different points too where I felt like it's good that we didn't end up like prolonging it for any longer. So there's like pros and cons to the situation, but point being, just to not like get too in depth about the situation, I feel like again it's just that comparison. And although before I started talking to him, I was like decently okay with how I looked and my self-esteem, I feel like it was just, I was in a neutral place, you know. I wasn't like overly confident, but I also wouldn't say that I was like insecure either. And I think now coming out of that, like it kind of traumatized me in a way. So I'm kind of dealing with the repercussions, right? If that's the right word, of that situation, and dealing with breaking away from the comparison. Yeah.
And that brings us to our point of pretty privilege, in a sense where if a girl is pretty, she is oftentimes treated better, and that's just the reality of it. And I think it's like a universal experience, like not just like guys being nicer to girls, but I feel like naturally, like as humans, when something is more aesthetic, we gravitate towards it more. And if like a person who is pretty or like hot, handsome, whatever, cute makes a mistake, you're more likely to be more forgiving of their mistake or make excuses for them. Whereas if someone was ugly and did the same thing, you would be prone to being more harsh and unforgiving.
Yeah, I feel like a really good example of this that I faced so many times, and also I was watching a video about someone talking about her experience growing up never being approached by men, and how every time that she went out with her friends and like a guy would come up to her friend group and talk to this one specific girl, the hot girl of their friend group, the guy would kind of disregard like all the other girls, or even more so the ugly one, which was the person who was talking about it in the video. And how men kind of, when men would come up to the friend group and talk to just this specific girl, it felt dehumanizing because they wouldn't even like pay attention to the other girl. it kind of felt like he was just there for that mission. And even when the other girl would try to talk to him, it felt like he didn't even consider her as a person, because that wasn't his type, and he was there to just get at the hot friend and not the ugly friend. And I've dealt with this experience a lot of times too, where I'm stuck in kind of like a third wheeling position, where just like her, men come up to talk to my friend, and they don't even like look at me or anything. Like, I'm not even there. I'm basically invisible, you know? And that can feel so, like, again, dehumanizing. Like, bruh, like, hello, I'm a person too. Like, you can holler at my girl, like, you got that. You know, that is not an issue. But like, at least like talk to me too, like I'm a person, you know. Although that's a negative thing too, I can't always be mad at my pretty friend for that situation, because she's not at fault, you know. Like,
she was just born with them good genes.
She was just born with them good genes. Like, it's not her fault that she's pretty, and it's not like she's asking other men to hit on her, you know. It just happens. So although pretty privilege can have these sort of things happen to like me or like the girl in the video, it's also not like the pretty girl's fault either. And with that, I kind of wanted to go into like pros and cons of pretty privilege itself, and how I feel like although pretty privilege has like pros where you attract more men essentially, and
or just, we don't have to talk about this in such a binary sense either. Like, just hot people in general will attract people. That's it.
Exactly.
I think it can be applied to like every area, like getting away with things more often, like making mistakes or doing something toxic. It's more excusable, like I was saying earlier. But also, like, I've heard that in Korea, if you're prettier, you're more likely to get a job.
I was literally about to say that.
And appearance also factors into your ability to get a job, and not just education.
Yes.
Which is so weird, and like
it's so stupid.
It's so like not fair to think about, because it's not a person's fault whether they're pretty or not, to like decide in like a factor that doesn't have to do with that. I mean, sure, there are like certain jobs where I guess appearance does factor into it, like it like contributes to the customer experience or whatever.
Yeah.
That's like one of the reasons why plastic surgery rates in Korea like are
one of the highest.
Yeah. Because sometimes it's just not for their own validation or for their social life, but they needed to be prettier in order to get a job.
To survive, you know.
That was just really baffling to me.
I know. I just realized that too. Like, I feel like
how horrible is it if you have all like the necessary requirements and education behind your profile to get a job, but they're gonna say no and hire the pretty girl next to you who has less
experience.
Less experience and stuff. Like, that sucks.
Yeah, I feel like those are, at least to me, the main like pros that can come with pretty privilege. Just being able to, I guess to sum it up, like being able to attract more people and also having a higher chance of jobs.
One more thing. Besides just like better treatment overall, like for example, if you were to get like plastic surgery, but you ended up looking like so fake, so overdone, so plastic, you would most definitely get hate for it. Like, it's seen like so many times where, like she looks mad ugly after her plastic surgery. I don't know why she chose to do it or whatever. Plastic surgery is successful and done well, and it looks like really natural, and the person looks so like much more gorgeous after the procedure. People don't get as much hate. And I saw a short or TikTok or whatever saying like 5 idols who are praised for getting plastic surgery because they looked so much better
after,
and it was pretty and natural and whatever, and it fit the beauty standard. So there's that double-sidedness to plastic surgery and situations just because you're pretty.
It can also lead to like, although you'll look pretty after plastic surgery, sure, there's also that, or the comments that you get like, oh, like now you're unnatural because you've gotten plastic surgery. So like, sure, you look pretty, I guess now,
but it's fake. It's not natural.
Fake. So you're not a real pretty person. You're a fake pretty person. So it's not like,
you can never win.
Women can never win. You can never win. Never. But that being said, like, there's so many pros and cons to pretty privilege. And
since we've explored the pros side, let's get into the cons.
Yes.
And I feel like the plastic surgery talk was like a good transition for that, because cons, if you do plastic surgery and you spend hella money on that, but then people say you look fake and it doesn't turn out well, boom, you get treated worse, in fact, for being plastic and ugly.
Yeah, that's something that's so like, it really just irks me, because I feel like even if you are born ugly per se, and you choose to get plastic surgery in order to like look at yourself in the mirror and feel pretty, you're not considered real pretty because of it, because of plastic surgery.
Or you're just talent and things that you should be proud of and rewarded for and recognized for, they get covered up by if you're pretty or not. It becomes this big deciding factor. And if you've seen like the trailers everywhere for Mask Girl, it's
yes,
the reason why people are wearing masks on the internet and covering up their face is because they're considered ugly or born ugly, but this mask gives them the chance to highlight what they're good at and be able to show off that, yeah, I can be an idol because I do sing and dance well, but that pretty factor. So the mask cancels that out, and so they're just recognized solely for their talents and abilities, whereas if they've seen your face and you were ugly, you wouldn't get that same opportunity. And we both have not yet watched Mask Girl, but I mean, seeing you have I have, she has, but I've seen clips here and there, so that's why I just thought it was like a good example to be bringing it up.
I think so too. And I feel like another con, which is probably the most obvious, is pretty people are more likely and more susceptible to catcalls and just SA in general. And that's not to say that if you don't fit the beauty standards, you don't get sexually assaulted, because that does happen.
It's a universal girl thing. Like some men are just like really horny and they can't keep it together, so they want to break rules,
it in their pants,
and they want to be a terrible person and just treat us as if we're not humans, we don't have feelings, and we're just there for their sexual pleasures.
Yeah, and that's something that, like, although, like, sure, there's moments of, like, comparison when I look at, like, how many guys I can get versus how many guys, like, my pretty friend can get. There is that internalized, like, male validation, but at the same time, I have to reframe my thoughts and think about, like, how many men approach my friend that she just doesn't want to talk to, you know, like they're creepy, bro. Like they're creepy. Like they should not be getting nowhere near this girl, but yet they still do, you know. And just being catcalled on the street, like she's not asking for it, you know. I feel like that's a very prevalent like con that you can find a lot with people that are more pretty.
Another issue is when you're pretty, I feel like girls specifically, because of that jealousy and competition, like if they make a small slip up,
I was about to say that.
Immediately they're like, everyone's hopping on their dick, even though we're talking about but you get what I mean. Like everybody's trying to like cancel the pretty girl, even though like maybe it was just like a small slip up, or not that big of a deal, or maybe it was, but like they're waiting on a downfall.
And I feel like pretty people have to live up to this standard of beauty 24/7, and I feel like there's like, at least with celebrities, you can see this being so prevalent. You can get the hottest celebrities, the ones where so many people are just thirsting over them, but you'll see that paparazzi pictures that get the most views or most attraction are the ones that are showing them looking ugly, or them on their off day.
Or when for example, Millie Bobby Brown and Selena Gomez, since they've been in the public eye for so long, people are just waiting for them to turn legal. And I've read and seen where like when Selena had to finally turn like 18 or whatever, they tried like getting shots and pictures up her skirt because she was legal now. Or maybe like it probably has happened to other female celebrities too, or maybe I'm like getting the celebrities mixed up. Millie Bobby Brown, like people waiting for her to turn legal too, and the whole like Drake situation.
Okay, sorry y'all, our camera stopped recording, so we had to kind of deal with that, but we're back. So I think that's like pretty good on pretty privilege, and now we kind of want to move on to the topic of, am I ugly or just broke?
Beauty is a very broad idea and concept, and it has many layers to it, but for the sake of today's episode, again, we won't be going into everything, but the idea of being, am I just ugly or broke? Like, can I just not afford plastic surgery or
just
nice
dressing
clothes?
better?
Yeah. And just, I feel like when you have money and you're just in a place in life where you're really happy and you just have that means to do whatever you want, like, because you're up, like, I feel like you can, it like shows from the inner to out. Like, for example, Bretman Rock, he's literally glowing, and he's out there living his life in the mountains with all his chickens or whatever.
And he got that money, he got that bag,
and obviously it's a very different comparison to his starting out in broke era. Of course, he always had that confidence, but I feel like there was a big physical shift and like a happiness shift when he did like become successful.
Yeah, and there's obvious things too where like a lot of celebrities, like when they do get that bank, like, bro, do you think they're dressing themselves? No, bro, like they're getting stylists to be able to look better in the public eye, or when or with paparazzi and stuff.
And a person can be like really average and mid, and normally they wouldn't catch someone's eye, but let's say they're rich and they have like a good sense of style, and they can afford like getting all this expensive
like
ass clothes and whatever. It makes a person attractive, like that much more attractive. and even though they're men, like they become attractive because of their means to be able to dress well. And of course, like, people can thrift and whatnot, like whatever. Yeah, if you're broke, go thrift. Like,
that's your best option right there.
But like, I'm just saying that some people, like, I feel like fashion heads especially, like, they spend so much bank on their clothes. Like, one of our friends spends mad money on money and shoes. I mean, not money and shoes, clothes and shoes. And it just goes to show, like, means and, like, your ability to afford things, like, does contribute to the level of your attractiveness.
But see, this also goes into how beauty is so subjective, because although I think someone is attractive, bro, you do not think that they're attractive.
Yeah, I always clown her for people she likes.
And bro, like, in a way, because like, bro, he is attractive. Anyways, besides the point. What I'm trying to say here is how, like, I always got upset growing up thinking, like, oh, why am I not attractive? But it just goes to show that beauty is so subjective, and not everyone is going to think the same person is attractive. And I feel like something that I just have to, like, internalize more and just have it click in my brain is that although some people may not find that outer value in yourself, there's other people that will, you know.
And going back to the idea of how subjective beauty is, like, I'm, in technical terms, my, like, best friends and, like, super close friends, none of them are really the beauty standard. Like, oh my god, so hot, so fine, is, like, not the first reaction. But in my eyes, I, like, adore all my friends, and I think they're all really beautiful because I've gotten to know them and I know how they are. And because of their personality, like, it just overtakes any physical aspect of that and more like surface level aspect of that, because I know them, and so their inner glow kind of just takes over, like,
their, like, appearance or their standard
and it becomes something that doesn't matter to me because I love them so much.
Yeah, and see, that happens so much in friendships where it's like you kind of have to take that same principle and apply it to, like, romance, I guess. Because when I look at my friends too, although they have their own insecurities and they point it out to me, like, to me, they're, like, the prettiest people in the world. And the same thing can apply to future potential boyfriends or people that are just trying to get to know you like that. But I feel like let me just talk about me. Like, I tend to get hurt because like, I don't get approached by these, like, random men or whatever. But I also have to think about how, again, they're random people. Like, they don't know you on, like, the level that, like, you might know your friend. So it's like, it's just that outer appearance. That's all they have. But when you combine both, I think that's when you can really get, like, that true essence of a person and their values, you know.
Like, yes, you can see a cute person on the street and you're like, ooh, they're so fine, like, I want to hit them up and whatever. But then when you get to know that, like, physically attractive person, and
they're so, like, their personality is so ugly, like, it just makes them...
Oh, okay, I wasn't gonna say that, but
like, Okay, what were you gonna say then?
I was gonna say, like, if their personality doesn't mesh well, or like you find them boring or whatever.
Same thing. Like,
no, that's not an ugly personality. It's just a not compatible personality. Then you like kind of realize like, nah, a relationship wouldn't really work out between us, and like you grow less interested and attracted to that person. So that's where I find, but like, yes, some like beautiful people are, I guess, just have an ugly personality.
Yeah, I've met plenty of people that although they're like beautiful, they're kind of just like full of themselves in a way, and their personality brings them down from like a 9, because there's no way you can be a 10. I feel like that's just impossible. But let's say from a 9 to like a 5, and maybe even lower than that, depending on how bad it is.
There's a difference between ego and confidence, y'all. Get it straight.
There is.
We'll go into that another time, but I'm just saying.
It's a really big thing, y'all. I guess now is a really good time to end it off on a positive note with some advice, and Becky can take it from here.
Okay. I know it's a cliche to say, but you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. I know.
That is cliche, Becky. That is.
No, because like when you like a person and then you show them to your friends and they're like, oh my god, he's mad ugly. Like, you cannot be liking him right now.
I know. That's so true. Like, I've had so many.
But if they have like a good personality,
it makes up for their appearance.
Cause like at the end of the day, like you can't live with a person forever and have a relationship with a person if your personalities aren't clicking. Like, that's just not sustainable. That's not how you build long-lasting and healthy connections.
And at the end of the day, like, if you're really trying to search for like a long-lasting partner, you're all gonna rot and look all wrinkly and crusty.
Yeah.
So
and physical beauty is just a very surface level factor to relationships. So of course, like, if they're ugly and have an ugly personality, like, go at them. Like, sure, they deserve it, and they broke your friend's heart. Yeah, y'all can have at it. But of course, when you're out like hunting and fishing or whatever, you like the physical appearance isn't going to matter as much once you realize like how beautiful a person is on the inside.
Yeah, and I feel like I can see that, like, even with people that I've liked, although they haven't been the most attractive, and even with you know who, bro, when that first started happening, I told my friends about that, and they saw his pictures and stuff, and they were like, oh my gosh, he looks so girly pop. Like, they were all clowning me, and I'm just like, no, y'all, like, y'all don't get it. Like, y'all don't see my vision. Like, his personality, like, it's just like, like, it just completes it for me, you know? So I feel like it's the same thing with other people. And I feel like that's something that I really have to shove it in my mind, where it's like, looks... It's so hard to say that, but it doesn't always matter. Because, again, there's so many privileges to it. But
you're going to see a pretty person walk down the street and be like, ooh, they're so fun, and, like, have your little girly pop moment. But it's just for the funsies. You can still do that. You know, at the end of the day, it's not like you're going to, like, form a deep connection with a stranger on the street. Like, sure, maybe that will happen. Once in a lifetime chance, but again, that's very romanticized. That's a very romanticized idea, and so realistically, it's not gonna matter. But you can still like do that for the funsies, cause I know I'm gonna keep doing it. Like, duh.
Another thing that I wanted to say too is I was watching a podcast by Kevin something. I forgot his last name, but if y'all search up Kevin, I'm sure you'll find his podcast because he's so... love him. Anyways, he was basically saying how, like, something that has helped him with his own confidence is, like, eliminating that, like, competitive factor to it. He said that when he would go to, like, parties for business or just parties to party, he said that he always felt like a competition with other people that came into the room, like, as if there could only be one pretty person in a room. No one else could be pretty besides this one person. And it took him a while to kind of shift his mindset, to, like, yes, like, someone came in through the door and they're pretty, but that doesn't eliminate or negate your own beauty too. Like, there could be multiple pretty people in a room. It doesn't have to be just that one person. And I feel like that's kind of been helping me a little bit with just the whole aspect of looking at myself and feeling confident, you know.
And realistically, again, I told Gabby this last night, there's like 8 billion people on Earth. There's always going to be someone prettier or uglier than you. So there's no use in comparing yourself because it's just never going to end.
Just hyperfixating on that.
And you don't have to look in the mirror and go, I'm so ugly or I'm so pretty. You can just look at yourself in the mirror and be like, that's just me, and have a neutral state of mind about yourself and not be so quick to make a judgment at yourself or like categorize yourself or something. Like, I feel like that's where I'm at today. Like, when I look in the mirror, I don't think, oh my God, I'm so ugly, or oh my God, I'm so pretty. I just think, oh, it's just me. And I feel like that's been a really healthy way for me to just be viewing myself, and just I'm not so hyperfixated on the idea of looking at myself from a third perspective. I just feel like I'm just doing my own thing and just living life and not trying to worry about all these external factors.
I'm still working on it, y'all.
That's by no means to say that I'm like a super confident baddie or whatever. And it's okay if you do look in the mirror and you go, I'm a bad bitch. Like, go you, girl, you are a bad bitch.
As long as we're not looking in the mirror and being like, oh my gosh, I'm such an ugly fucking person and I have no value on this earth. Because that's not true,
and
y'all.
Don't determine your value by like how pretty or ugly you are. It's just whatever. And I know it's hard, and again, it's like a cliche to be saying all this, but it is like true. And when I look in the mirror, there are some days where it's just tough, and I want to be nitpicking at everything about my body or comparing it to like my pretty friends or like beauty influencers, whatever, pretty people on the gram. But I think being able to have like a healthy connection with social media and myself has really just helped in how I view myself, and just being able to like focus on me and do my thing and what makes me feel good, what makes me feel happy. So I'm not always thinking about like, oh, this, that, blah, 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 you know?
Yeah, and I feel like social media also pushes this narrative onto a lot of other girls where it's like you have to feel like confident all the time, in a way where it's like they don't really talk about how true confidence isn't like just a linear thing or something that just keeps going up and up and up. You know, you can still feel confident but have days where you don't think you're looking your best, and I feel like that's so normal to think that way, but social media just pushes this narrative where it's like you have to be confident every single day, you have to love yourself every single day, and and like the little mantras and you are beautiful, you are strong, you know, sometimes it's really not like that. But I feel like as long as we're able to keep like that neutral outlook on how we look, just on our beauty, I guess, our appearance, I think it kind of helps. For me, like, although I can't necessarily say I'm confident right now with myself and where I'm at, there's times where I feel better when I'm doing certain things, like when I get my hair done or my nails done, or if I go out and I do my makeup. Like, little things like that help me feel like more confident
or
about
when
myself.
you're lifting.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that too, cause this past month I started working out with one of my friends. Like, bro, after a workout session, you feel so like good about yourself. And even being a woman who's like getting into weightlifting, it just makes me feel strong, you know, because I feel like that's such a like male dominated area. So doing that also makes me have days where I feel good about myself. And I also have to like think that looking back, I feel like I've had more good days than bad days when it comes to my like appearance. So I can't also hyperfixate on the bad days, because at the same time it's like, bro, like, you can't expect yourself to look good 24/7 when you're like being bummy and just like laying down on your like couch all day, you know. Like, it's okay, y'all, it's okay to look bummy sometimes.
And again, everyone's experiences are different. Some people, like, what works for them is looking in the mirror and having that neutral state. Some people, it's having that like really positive mentality about themselves when they look in the mirror. Some people work out. Some people delete social media. And that does not mean you have to be doing all these things in order to have a healthy relationship with yourself and your body. It's just figuring out what works for you, because you can still have a healthy relationship with social media by managing like what accounts you're following, what you see, what your feed is, and the amounts of times you go on it. Like, maybe you don't delete social media, but you set a little timer for yourself, like a little screen limit or whatever. You just, it's the little things that will help you and are like tools to you to help you improve that relationship and help you on your journey in self-love.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But yeah, it's just a process that we have to get through day by day, because there's definitely more to life than just your appearance. I feel like we should just not always feel like we always have to perform for other people. For me, what's helped too is shifting my mindset on like, there's things like about myself that I don't like, and I have the choice to choose to accept those things or to actively do something to change those things. But not losing weight, for example, so you can be more attractive to guys, you know. And that's something that I'm like really trying to rework in my mind right now. And I feel like it's getting there.
Doing things for yourself.
And not for other people.
At the end of the day, you're the one experiencing your life, and so it's just pointless to, and there's gonna be so many people like involved in your life or perceiving you, and it's just not worth having a bad experience because you're hyper fixated on that stuff. Just do you and make yourself happy. Like, that's really it.
So that's it, y'all, for this episode.
You can follow us at the Control Shift C podcast on Instagram and TikTok.
And you can catch us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube to listen or watch our episodes. Just remember that random thoughts can be important thoughts too.
So let's keep the conversation going.
Bye.